Professor Ebrahim Moosa, thank you very much indeed for your time. I'm most grateful to you. And in your writings, you describe the concept of the space in between as being very central to your understanding of many philosophical issues, including Islamophobia. Could you explain this concept in a nutshell in the context of Islamophobia?
Yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity. You know, I describe my position of that of being intellectually the position of the dehliz, the in-between space. In other words, those of us who are the products of different cultural and civilizational influences. In my case, it's Islamic, it's Sub-Saharan Africa, it's South Asian, it's European. So we are a melange of different kind of cultural forces. We inhabit a varieties of cultural and intellectual spaces. And so I'm trying to identify that space as my location, my existential location. In terms of Islamophobia, as you understand it, as I understand it rather, that Islamophobia is the way in which a certain kind of resentment and hatred of Islam is expressed. Now, the pretext of that hatred is one of culture, can be theological in terms of Islam is a false religion and it has no right to appear on the world stage. But then it is utilized and it is instrumentalized in order to deprive Muslims of fundamental rights. And it is also used as a political weapon. It has been weaponized to deny Muslims their existence. In other words, they have to undertake a certain kind of civilizational conversion in order to participate in the world. And that's precisely what Islamophobia is. That's what happened to Jews in Germany, that many Jews became European. They left behind their Judaism. They decided they want to be more European than European. And we know what the outcome was in World War II, where there was this large genocide taking place of Jewish communities, precisely because of difference. So Islamophobia is about identifying difference in order to discriminate.
I see. And you mentioned about instrumentalization, weaponization of this particular concept. What do you think? How has it become so toxic and poisonous in our day and age?
The reason it's become toxic and poisonous is because Muslims are weak. It's the weakness of Muslim cultures, political systems, and the weakness of articulation of who they are and what they are. And obviously Muslim societies have been going through a variety of major convulsions in the post-independence period in different parts of the world, and they've really not gotten their act together. So with the result, they are politically, economically, and civilizationally weak, and hence there's the hegemony of global forces, especially European forms of articulation, that now recycles those early hatreds into forms of a cultural, civilizational, and ethical difference, and that becomes the basis for discrimination and denial.
Do you see any elements in our modern world which actually counteract against this traditionalist approach which you described?
Right. Well, I think the way forward to counteract that would be to build alliances, because Muslims are not the only ones who have been discriminated and denied. We need to go back to indigenous communities around the world, native communities in North America and Latin America, those indigenous communities that have been also cultural genocide has been committed against them. Also communities in Africa and other parts of the world who have not received their full recognition as people. So building those kinds of alliances and also holding Western civilization accountable for its cultural genocide and its epistemicide. Epistemicide meaning the depletion of other forms of knowledge. So the result that Muslims are being placed in a corner with their cultural heritage and with their practices, the reason for that is because the ways of knowing that Muslims had been eradicated through colonial education. So Muslims can no longer articulate themselves in terms of who they are and what they are, in terms of their values, in terms of their practices, so on. So that's one. The second thing is that Muslims themselves are susceptible to conspiracy theories. Right. So a lot of the issues within Muslim societies are also resolved through conspiracy theories. not through proper civilized intercultural and also through proper discursive methods. In other words, conversations, open trust-building conversations of what difference is. So the take home to your question is that we need to assert difference and people need to accept difference, that people will be different. But unfortunately, the global hegemonic forces expects you to comply to one kind of normative person, culture or religion. And when your practice or your articulation of your culture militates and conflicts with that normative vision, you are then the outcast. And then you need to be blackballed, and you need to be marginalized, and you need to be discriminated against. I found that even amongst the leading European philosophers, like Jacques Derrida, when it comes to the question of Islam, they all draw a blank. That there's no space for Islam as a cultural, political heritage. What Islam must become, and this is one of the biggest issues that Europeans and North Americans have with Islam, that they can't come to terms with Islam and Muslims as political assertion of who they are.
Right.
So with the result that political Islam is targeted, of course you have these extremist versions of ISIS and other groups, but the political will that Muslims have, that political will is subjected to tremendous amount of discrimination and denial, and also at times extermination.
Thank you very much indeed for your extensive reprise. I'm most grateful to it. It's a very big subject. It's all embracing. And thank you very much indeed, within 5-6 minutes, explaining to us all of those details in a very concise way. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. Thank you.